Hi, how are we all doing today? My name is David Gugino, and in today's book review, I actually have a very famous book that I'm going to review today. Now, this famous book is very thick. I mean, look at this. It's a long one, but it's actually a very easy read, and it's got a title that I've debated on for years now after reading this book, but it's probably one of the thickest books I've read, oddly. But this book right here is something that you've probably heard from other business people and other influential entrepreneurs saying they've read it. And honestly, it's a crazy book, but it's very easy to understand, and the title's interesting. And it is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. Now, this book has been around for years. It's an older book, but a lot of entrepreneurs and business people and probably millionaires that you've watched have probably read this book. Now, the reason why I said earlier about debating the title that I did for years is because there is no 4-hour work week. A 4-hour work week does not exist. Now, you're probably wondering before we dive into it, well, David, what do you mean a 4-hour work week doesn't exist? And I'm just like, well, and I'm going to say to that, it doesn't, because 4 hours in a week, what are you going to get done within 4 hours in a week that's going to make you millions of dollars? For one. For two, when you hear people who make tons of money and own businesses, they are working all the time. Now, keep in mind they like to work and love what they do, but they're working all the time. They are not working 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours a day. That is not something they do. But we're going to dive into the book here. So, we are going to start the rules that change the rules is the name of the chapter. And in this, he's talking about better use of your time. I'm sorry, that took a while to come out. Focus on better use of your time is what he's talking about. But listen to what he has to say. Focus on better use of your weapons instead of constant repair. Too much, too many, and too often of what you want becomes what you don't want. This is true of possessions and even time. Lifestyle, design, is not interested in creating an excess of idle time, which is poisonous, but the positive use of free time. Defined simply as doing what you want as opposed to what you feel obligated to do, there is much to be said for the power of money as currency. I'm a fan myself, but adding more of it isn't the answer as often as we'd like to think. In part, it's laziness. If only I had more money is the easiest way to postpone the intense self-examination and decision-making necessary to create a life full of enjoyment, now and not later. By using money as a scapegoat and work as our all-consuming routine, we are able to conveniently disallow ourselves the time to do otherwise. John, I love to talk about the gaping void I feel in my life, the hopelessness that hits me like a punch in the eye every time I start my computer in the morning. But I have so much work to do. I've got at least 3 hours of unimportant emails to reply to before calling the prospects who said no yesterday. Gotta run. He's just talking to somebody. Busy yourself with a routine of the money wheel. Pretend it's the fix-all and artfully create a constant distraction that prevents you from seeing just how pointless it is. Deep down and know it's all an illusion, but with everyone participating in the same game of make-believe, it's easy to forget the problem is more than money. So the problem is pretty much better use of your free time and better use of working in an organized way. So, for example, that I brought up earlier, weapons as in like things that help you focus, like routines and habits that help you focus. Now, constant repair, basically distractions, things that go awry and you like taking those awry things to heart and continuing to not work. Now, too much, too many, too often of what you want becomes what you don't want. So what I really like about what he says in this section is money is not everything. Money does not solve problems. Money just helps you buy things and gives you freedom. And that I don't like. And you're like, yeah, but it pays well. Well, would you take a pay cut to do something you actually really like doing? And would you rather take a pay cut doing something you really like doing, or would you rather continue to do what you hate doing but just continue to make more money. And then when you retire, you're like, yep, I worked a job for 20 plus years that I hated, but I just did it because it paid well. Like, honestly, when you hear stories like that, you should not look down at those stories, but you should be like, yeah, I don't want that to be my life. There is so much more to life than work and money. It is more than money. It's the way you view your job, the people you work with, the time that you have. You only have a limited amount of time on this earth. And a lot of people do not think that. Now, I do have a goal to live a full life, but when it comes to limited time on earth, I'd rather die knowing I worked a job that I loved, I worked around people that I loved, I hung out with people that I loved, and I had a hobby, like with lifting weights is my competitive powerlifting. Obviously, I can't do that my entire life because my body will eventually give out, but you do also got to think. Working out as a hobby of mine is something I like to do, and I would love to have the time and the money to do that, but having more money is not the answer. It's not the answer to anything. It is managing your time, managing your finances, and just managing your mindset towards life. So think about that. Now, the next section we have in this book is another good section, but before we get into that, what I also noticed, what I found is warning on the back of the book. This is what it says. Warning, do not read this book unless you want a new way of living. That's funny. Think about that. Do not read this book unless you want a new way of living. Now, that is interesting. Now, obviously, I did read this book years ago, and I still work a job, but when it comes to that, I mean, saying that's alright, but honestly, it takes time to have a new way of living. But also, some of these people might do certain parts of this book and call it a new way of living. So, for example, they might make more money running a business, but the money they make is good enough for them. It pays their bills. It gives them the free time they want, but they don't work out. They don't have an early morning routine. They don't constantly travel. They're not just money hungry all the time. So it's kind of like they did something in the book and that made their life much easier and better. And honestly, that's what it is when I review these books. The more you take out of what these books say and just put it towards your life, it might be one simple thing, you can be much happier. But it's all just a process, and it's all habits. But keep that in mind. They're all habits, because that 1, 2, or 3 habits that you need to develop might change your life and just make you much happier than you are right now. But this book, listen to what he has to say here. I'm not going to lie. It sucks, it hurts, like pulling out a splinter, but you are the average of the 5 people you associate with, unambitious or unorganized or disorganized friends. If someone isn't making you stronger, they're making you weaker. Remove the splinters and you'll thank yourself for it. Don't ever arrive at the office or in front of your computer without a clear list of priorities. You'll just read unassociated email and scramble your brain for the day. If you are stuck trying to decide between multiple items that all seem crucial, as happens to all of us, look at each in turn and ask yourself, if this thing I accomplished today, will I be satisfied with my day? Let me read that again. If you are stuck trying to decide between multiple items that all seem crucial, as happens to all of us, look at each in turn and ask yourself, if this is the only thing I accomplished today, will I be satisfied with my day? So honestly, filming these things, doing my meal prep, preparing for work the night before so I can either sleep a little bit or have a morning routine before work, doing all of that, honestly, it makes my day. And also making sure I get a nap in, or if I watch something in a show I like. Now, because I work out and I fight, and that takes most of my evening, just think about that for a second. All of that stuff just makes my day, and I'm satisfied with my day. So when it comes to satisfaction during your day, be satisfied with what you get done that day. That is my words of wisdom. Now you might think, well, I didn't get this done to get this done, and then you're just like, well, look back now. You got this done, you got this done, you had a little bit of free time, you got a little bit of rest time. I personally think you need free time and rest time when it comes to busy days. Your rest time. You watch 45 minutes of a show you like. your free time. You watch 45 minutes of a show you like. Your rest time. You take a 20, maybe 30-minute nap, or just have your head tilted back on the couch just for 30 minutes and not worry about work or not worry about life. And I believe you need, and if you do the math, you're also taking maybe an hour and a half out of your day to do those things. Now, watching a movie, for example. I mean, I do love long 3-hour epics, but honestly, that shouldn't be your movie of choice, especially when you're really busy that day. Now, you can watch one, but you watch it like on a day you have nothing going on, or you watch it really early in the morning. But satisfied with your day. Now, when it's like pulling out a splinter, listen to that. The average of 5 people. You are the average of 5 people you associate with the most. So do not underestimate the effects of your pessimistic, unambitious, or disorganized friends. If someone isn't making you stronger, they're making you weaker. So think about that for a second. Your friends, if they are making you think this way and beating you down and being pessimistic and just being angry all the time, I also don't like being around those people, so I just don't become friends with those people. Now you might think, well, I've known them for years and they're like that. Well, you tell them you're going to change the way you act, or I'm just not going to be around you because I don't like it. Because their attitudes will affect your attitude. And you might not see it, you might not think about it now, but it will happen. So I want you to think about that for a second. And also think about your friends who make you angry and make you upset with their attitudes. Honestly, it would make my day if they didn't act that way, or if I just found new people. So think. Now the third and final section of the 4-hour work week. Now the third and final section of the 4-hour work week. So this is actually what I like the most. So this is an actual business part of selling. This is an actual business part if you run a business. Is really think about what he has to say here. Just because before I read you this section, when I was looking through stuff to tell you guys, the first thing that I thought of when I read this was like, wow, this is probably the most interesting and thing, I guess you could call it, that I did not think about ever until he brought this up. When I read this to you, really think about it and think about telling somebody it, because I thought it was so crazy and interesting how he thought this way, because I never would have thought about it. So listen to what he has to say here. It is critical that you decide how you will sell and distribute your product before you commit to a product in the first place. The more middlemen are involved, the higher your margins must be to maintain profitability for all the links in the chain. So think about that. It is critical that you decide how you will sell and distribute your product before you commit to a product in the first place. The more middlemen are involved, the higher your margins must be to maintain profitability for all the links in the chain. Before you commit to a product in the first place, you have to figure out how to sell it and how to distribute it before you even commit to it. Before you even commit to making something or starting something, how are you going to sell and distribute it? I thought about that after, but the reason I think that's so crazy is a lot of people do not think, at least in my opinion, they don't think how they're going to market and how they're going to sell their business before they release their product. But when it comes to running a business, how that business makes money and gets people is through marketing. Now, marketing is, there are so many studies done on marketing, but if you really think about it, a lot of really big businesses, primarily fast food chains, are experts in marketing. Like cereal, for example, sugary cereal, the old commercials you saw when you were kids. It's genius marketing, because what do kids love? Sweets, colorful things, cartoons, all on a box. And that is what sells. Now, the reason I brought that up is that's not really running a fitness business, or doing real estate, or even owning a gym, a fitness business. But think of your product first before you commit to a product. Figure out how to sell and distribute your product. Because I just said the opposite thing right then and there, if you notice that. Figure out how to sell and distribute your product before you even commit to a product. Now, I think that's crazy, and I honestly think it's crazy how, the higher your margins must be to maintain profitability for all the links in the chain. The more middlemen are involved. So that means you have people who do your marketing, you're the guy who has the people who make the product, and then you have the people who market the product. And then you have the people who sell the product. When it comes to selling and marketing, I mean, I do not know much about that. I do think it's interesting, but it's like trying to sell these videos. It's also like trying to grow a YouTube channel or even selling yourself. Selling yourself, honestly, when people buy the product, people buy you. So that's why when I bring up on this channel, getting to know as many people as you can, being kind to everybody, being personable almost everywhere you go. I say everywhere you go. There are days where you're like, for example, going to be in the airport, and you'll be standing probably next to a pretty girl or a guy who's muscular or something, or some guy you want to talk to. And you might think, well, gee, I want to talk to them, but I'm never going to see them again, and they're probably not going to care. Or, I mean, you shouldn't really think this way. They might be really rude. So that's just something to think about, but honestly, I really want you to think about, before you commit to a product, figure out how to sell it and how to distribute it. I never thought of that. So the takeaway for this video and for this book review is think about a goal, think about how you're going to pursue this goal before you actually commit to a goal. And that's how I'm taking that, a little saying, out of a business into life. So before you commit to working out, for example, figure out how you're going to train, how you're going to make it a habit, what time you're going to do it so you don't like slack off on it. Figure out all of that before you commit to a goal. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for watching. There is no such thing as a 4-hour work week, but that is the name of the book. And feel free to let me know your opinion on that in the comments, and feel free to let me know what other business books or self-betterment books you'd like me to read, so I can read it to you guys and critique it to you guys. Thank you all for watching, and you all have a great day.